One face-to-face conversation is more effective than 34 emails exchanged back and forth. Think of how much time can be wasted, how much frustration there is and stress that comes from that. And instead, all you have to do is walk over to, for instance, their cubicle or their office and say, this is what I mean. And that immediately is going to save everyone time and potentially salvage a relationship or strengthen one.
Hey, welcome to Capterra's Guest Network series, where we talk to leading business influencers about how to work smarter by using the right software and technology. By the way, you can follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. So our first guest today is Dan Schawbel. And for those who don't know him, which is very unlikely, Dan is a world-renowned keynote speaker, a best-selling author of several books that have been translated into multiple languages. Hey Dan, welcome.
So happy to be here with you.
Thank you for being here. So here's the dilemma that I wanted to talk to you about. So many companies would like their employees to work more from the office, right? But from what I know, workers remain resistant to that. And according to our global study, the study that Capterra did, only 15%, so that's 1/5, of all employees actually want to be in the office 5 days per week. And more than 1 in 3 would be even willing to take a pay cut to work remotely. So my question to you is, where do you think this is going? Do you think that, let's say, in 5 years from now, everyone will be back in the office again?
I don't think so. I think we're going to be in hybrid long term because during COVID, people had never experienced remote work at all in their whole careers. And then during COVID, they were forced to work remotely. They invested in office technology. They got used to what it was like to have that different degree of flexibility to better manage their personal and professional time, more or less control their hours. But what we noticed during COVID was that as people were working remote, while productivity was increasing, their mental health was decreasing because they suffered from burnout because they were working more hours. They exchanged their time spent commuting, train, maybe even plane, car, with more time spent working and less work-life boundaries because the office was the great separator between work and life. And therefore, people understand that the office is a great place to be, but at the same time, they also want the independence and flexibility to work remote and cost savings because it's about $50 to $60 a day to commute to the office. So that's why I think it's going to be hybrid, because the best of both worlds. It's a truce between employers and employees. And people will never forget that they were able to work remote. They've already invested in the remote offices that they have and where they already relocated.
Exactly. But do you think in that sense there is also a benefit for employees to work from the office?
Yeah, that's why I think it's going to be hybrid, because we've noticed that the average amount of days people are working in the office right now is about 3 days. That's the most typical, and it's very common for people to work remote on Mondays and Fridays. And that's why you'll see, if you live, in and around a city, that there's less traffic on those days over the past 1 to 2 years. And so that's how you can just tell, what days people work in the office
as well, right? That's,
and
on those particular days.
Exactly. And people want to work in the office where their teams are. They don't want to work remote and have all their teammates be in the office. So I think that type of scheduling and management is really important. But these are all new skills. It's not like you went to college and you learned how to manage remote teams. So there's definitely a huge adjustment for people to be able to manage people in different locations and in the office, outside the office. So that's been kind of a challenge that a lot of organizations are trying to overcome.
Yeah, exactly. Can you go a little bit into what are the possible benefits of working from the office? I remember that in your latest book, Back to Human, you mentioned something about how easier it is to ask a favor of someone in the office as opposed to asking by mail, right?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest research studies that we cited in the book, it was from an article in Harvard Business Review, was that one face-to-face conversation is more effective than 34 emails exchanged back and forth. And think about this, like instead of emailing people and hoping they understand what you're saying many times, 34 times is a lot of times, think of how much time can be wasted, how much frustration there is and stress that comes from that. And instead, all you have to do is walk over to, for instance, their cubicle or their office and say, this is what I mean. And that immediately is going to save everyone time and potentially salvage a relationship or strengthen one.
Yeah, I also read somewhere, I think even in your own book, that it even helps just to be in the office for your own career, just the mere fact that you are there on site.
The one thing that remains true, there's very classic principles when it comes to human behavior, and one of them is proximity bias, which leads to favoritism. And the closer you are to power, so an executive, your manager who is in control of whether you get promoted or not, the better off you'll be. So for instance, millions of studies over the years have proven this too. If you work very close to your manager, you're seen, you're heard, and if your colleagues are working remote, they're not getting that type of attention and oversight, and therefore you're more likely to get promoted, even if your coworkers are more productive.
So you think, from what I understand from you, you think that the future is going to be hybrid, right? So knowing that, what do you think will be the most important technology trends in HR, let's say in the next 2 to 5 years?
I think all the big technology trends revolve around efficiency. 2024 is the year of efficiency. It goes back to 2008, coming out of that recession. It's all about doing more with fewer resources. And obviously with AI and all this transformative technology, it's about how do we become more efficient? And with even VR and AR, it's leveraging that technology in the office space as part of the value proposition to get people back in, right? Because you always want the office to add more value and to have, and there to be a reason to go back in the office instead of like working your home office that you already invested in. So what's going to be unique, not just your coworkers, not just, proximity to power and people who you work with, but also what is it offering? Is there perks? Is there technology that's making your life easier in the office that you wouldn't get at home, that you couldn't even afford to have at home? Like, for instance, the Apple VR, if they have that in the office, well, a lot of people can't afford $3,500 at home. So that's how I look at it. And I think that the more that companies realize that people want to use the technology they use at home, but even a more advanced version, they'll be able to leverage that to get people, excited to be in the office.
Then one last question. It's we didn't prepare you for this, so I hope you have an answer. But it's a question that we ask all our guests. Did you ever regret yourself buying a specific piece of software or technology?
The regret I have is I didn't spend enough on the technology earlier on, and it's not because maybe I couldn't afford to spend money on that technology. It's I should have gotten and done research to get better technology, because it took me too long to ramp up to the better technology when I could have had that in the first place. And this is like a microphone, headphones, like kind of basic technology that's really important now. A webcam is essential to working in a hybrid environment. I mean, these are all things that are staples now, but we had this technology a while ago, and I think that if we invested, or I invested in that technology, it could have really helped.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your insights, Dan, and thank you for watching. And I have one last question. Did you ever regret buying a certain kind of software? Let us know. And as always, like and subscribe on YouTube, LinkedIn, X. See you next time.